It's a well-known fact that the world rests on three giant whales. While mine sits on three giant questions. What I'm selling, how do I sell it, and who in their right mind would buy it. Welcome to the world of artist dolls, where practicality goes to die, but profit might still survive. So throughout this entire second season, we have been making dolls in all sorts of ways. And it seems only logical to cap it off by asking ourselves, can we make money from all this? Under what conditions? And what do we need to do? The best part is that we will immediately put our theories to the test, kind of like agile software development, but for stay-at-home moms. See, I was just like Dorothy with Tutu living peacefully in my own Los Alamos, but then nuclear tornado whisked me off to Barcelona. Luckily, I sold my house beforehand, so when I landed, I didn't flatten anyone, thank goodness, and I don't have to worry about finding the road back, another plus. I had niche recognition in Russia and sold dolls at exhibition in Moscow, catching the splashes of the oil boom in my best head 3 times a year, right on schedule. Most fans of my work got to know it through my exhibition booth, but neither the States nor Europe functions like the centralized structure I got used to. You know how all roads lead to Rome? Well, those modern territories of the old Roman Empire are nothing like that these days. This means I need to figure out a network distribution structure for the entire free world, one that actually works, so you cannot see if my plan holds water. Because in the end, the value of an idea comes down to how many people believe in it. So here is the American dream and the 3 internal questions in poses. What are we selling? Who are we selling it to? And how are we selling it? In Russia, there are basically just 2 questions. Who is to blame and what should we do? But let's not go down that rabbit hole right now. But let me rewind to how I first got into these magical creatures we call art dolls. They occupy a rather quirky corner of the art world, perched on a delicate line between play, craftsmanship, and genuine artistic expression. That's exactly what I drew me in. The chance to tackle serious ideas while still having fun. When I was just dipping my toes into doll making, fate led me to one of the largest doll galleries in Moscow. The minute I walked in, I felt completely at home. So much so I might have moved in if I couldn't have. And once you're on your true path, you start meeting the right people at exactly the right time. That day, the organizer of Russia's very first doll-making course happened to swing by the gallery to chat with the owner. She mentioned she was enrolling on a new group focused on academic sculpture in porcelain. It cost $700. This back to those halcyon days before 9/11 or Putin's big debut. Huge money. At the time, I was a broke school teacher, freshly out of an ill-advised marriage with a small child in tow. I had no idea where I would scrape up that kind of money. The overnight train right from Moscow to my hometown gave me plenty of hours to stare at the ceiling wide awake. I knew that if I didn't pivot my life right then, the rest of it might as well be on autopilot. Luckily, my family sensed that panic in my eyes. My mom offered to watch my son, and my brother, a hand-cutting guy who couldn't care less about dolls, simply handed me the cash. I took time from work and poured my heart into making my very first porcelain doll. Once I finished her, I brought her back to that same gallery for its big New Year's exhibition. And wouldn't you know it, she sold at the grand opening for $1,000. As a poor Russian teacher, I felt like a millionaire. Sure, the gallery took half of that, but it still lit me up inside like a shark tasting blood for the first time. That was my signal. I was on the right road. So, what are we selling? We are selling dolls from a limited edition collection dedicated to different neighborhoods of Barcelona. I collaborate with local musicians to create a personification of each neighborhood. A female character complete with her own musical theme. The collection is called Barcelona in Miniature. And if you search for my name on any music platform, you will find soundtracks for various Barcelona neighborhoods. I confess there is more music written than the dolls made, but we will be rolling them out little by little. That's why the dolls might look somewhat unfinished on the covers. As I have said before, perfectionism is the enemy of any artist. Obviously, Barcelona's neighborhoods are finite. As you know, some cities are jokingly said to be stretchable like rubber. I am planning no more than 12 locations, starting with the historical districts and moving northeast through the city. Each doll is one of a kind, made from scratch by me personally, using different materials, and each with its own legend. For the longest time, I refused to put my dolls up for sale because of that perfectionism, basically procrastination, masquerading as a is not ready yet mindset. But the time has finally come for my business to start paying for itself. Does your doll look like a botched plastic surgery case? No worries, we will fix that. Here is the thing, it's not your fault, it's all about proportions, and I'll show you the secret. You can start learning how to make dolls for free on my channel, perfect for beginners who think they cannot even draw a stick figure. But if you are ready to go all in, my exclusive courses offer a deeper dive. Subscribe monthly or unlock lifetime access to a full series where I guide you step by step through sculpting, painting, and dressing your doll. When was the last time you did something purely for yourself? Now it's your moment. I'll help you avoid or fix any mistakes along the way. Create your own masterpiece. Subscribe and click the link below to explore all my courses, including free starter lesson. Your doll making journey starts here. So we know what we are selling. But what do we compare a handmade doll to? What's our benchmark anyway? It occurred to me not to line them up with gallery paintings or sculptures. Let's try comparing a doll to a wristwatch instead. We all know this is a man's world, which is why boys like spoiling themselves with fishing rods, crossbows, rifles, knives, and other random junk that ends up displayed in a prime spot of the office. But a watch from a boutique brand? Now that is comparable to one-of-a-kind porcelain doll dressed in antique lace, complete with a lengthy backstory. That's a metaphor, but any sort of branding or positioning is a legend. And you cannot spin a legend without learning on a few metaphors. I figure that by contemplating the intriguable, it's easier to explain why this product carries such a high added value. Jokes aside, I genuinely treat what I do as art. I believe that art, first and foremost, should evoke an emotion, and then maybe we can dissect it in precise terms. People can spend a long time looking at the piece of art before they allow themselves to buy it. It's a whole journey of building a relationship with an artwork. Time acts like a nacre that forms around the grain of sand. The strong initial emotion you felt upon first seeing it. A pearl needs time to grow after all. And this time I'm going to try to start the process without prying open the shell, meaning I won't be showing it widely in any offline space. I'm going to bet on the online approach. Anticipating possible questions about why my dolls cost what they do, let me explain my past pricing method and the conditions surrounding it. In Russia, there is this sacred duty of every citizen never paying taxes and never serving in the army. Our government traditionally doesn't care much about our opinions, but it definitely wants our money in our lives. And we traditionally, in a gentle manner, contribute our tithe to it. But in Europe, out of courtesy or rather gratitude, have to pay the same taxes. And on top of that, €1 in Moscow and €1 in Barcelona used to buy you different amounts of stuff. So the price of my dolls remains roughly the same if you measure its cost in pounds of potatoes. Actually more like tons of potatoes. Sorry about that. A little later I'll tell you how I sold my last dolls in Moscow in 2022 for about $3,000. For that was $3,000 straight to me, with no Putin in between.
Now, if I want to see 3,000 euros here, I have to send the Spanish king 20 procents in VAT plus another 20 procents or so for income tax and social contributions.
Of course, we cannot truly compare these two guys, but it's too amusing to note that the tax policy of the bloody Putin is slightly more liberal than the royal one. And if I occurred to you to follow it, I also have to pay the musicians because they leave their footprints in eternity. These are the thoughts I'll summarize at the end of this episode. Collectors or not those? Let's try to identify the profile of a person who buys collectible dolls. Drum roll. Unfortunately, no single profile exists. Each person who comes into the art world brings their own unique story. However, seeing as I managed to live in Moscow for 25 years selling these dolls, I can share my observations on what real doll collectors look like. And I am absolutely convinced that the doll itself decides who it will belong to and when. I have seen it happen many times. At an exhibition, a doll seems to look straight into its human soul. Maybe there is some physical explanation, or some wave frequencies aligning. There is plenty we still don't understand about how this works. Someone might walk away from the booth, but now the doll has taken root in their mind. And they'll inevitably come back or track down the artist. My very first doll was purchased as a gift for a Russian actor. I share the full unscripted story in our new Doll O'Clock in America podcast. Go check it out, it's interesting. That was my first ever doll made without any formal knowledge, just pure intuition. But I poured so much emotion into it that people fell in love with her. It was a sign I was on the right path. People often ask me if I ever feel sad feeling my dolls go. I think they are like children. You pour all your energy and soul into them, they grow, and then they head off into the world as they should. Each of my dolls has its own story, and its ongoing journey no longer depends on me. For example, I once made a collection of dolls called Calibri. 5 dolls poured from one porcelain mold. The first place I showed them was a huge exhibition in Moscow, Гостиный двор, which boasts a total floor area of 82,000 square meters, likely the biggest doll expo in the world. Knowing our national appetite for all things grand. My podium was right by the entrance, and I watched one of the first attendees come down to the main staircase, lock eyes with one of these 5 sisters, buy her on the spot, and not even bother to look around any further. At subsequent shows, we hung out again. He had stopped by with his wife, tell me about the impressive doll collection, and pass along greetings from my doll. Another sister from the collection was bought as a gift. The remaining 3 were real social ladies. They traveled with me to multiple countries. They had plenty of interest, but stubbornly remained single. Then one day, I got a message on Instagram from a woman who adored my dolls and wanted to buy one, but she couldn't decide which. So I invited her and her husband to an exhibition. While she was strolling around, her husband told me he was ready to gift her the entire trio, because apparently those 3 just had to live together in the same home. The most importantly, they ended up being a perfect romantic token of love for a really beautiful couple. Another story. A collector commissioned a doll from me. I planned on making an elf, started sculpting, and suddenly I kept sampling on information about kitsune, the Japanese fox spirit. Kitsune, the shape-shifting folk spirit of Japanese folklore, embodies a moral ambiguity that's as alluring as it's unsettling. One moment she is luminous guide who unveils hidden truth, and the next she is a cunning puppet master pulling strings from the shadows. Her darker sides are not just there for the shock value, they reflect centuries of folklore, where revenge, jealousy, and manipulative power share the stage with her softer, more benevolent acts. In one tale, she might rescue a weary traveler. In another, She orchestrates downfall, intricated resembles a violence era in an opera. And just when you think you have pinned her down as either saint or sinner, she'll flash a cryptic grin because really, where is the fun in being predictable? Kitsune is a very ambitious character, and I carefully asked the client how she feels about such a concept. And she told me it's her personal symbol and how intimately connected she is to it. Then she showed me an image that matched my idea perfectly. This happens a lot when creating custom piece for someone. You end up on same wavelength, playing in perfect harmony. Another example. Someone wanted to buy a doll and they saw on my Instagram. They said they were only interested in porcelain, strictly hardcore and nothing else. They wouldn't even consider any other material. By the minute they arrived in my studio, they noticed a doll made of polymer clay, and suddenly there was no going back. That was the doll that looked into their soul, and she left it in the customer bag that very day. I think all artists, painters, maybe sculptors, playwrights speak with their characters as they're bringing them to life. Don't be embarrassed if that sounds strange. Feel free to share your own magical rituals for positive affirmations or when starting something new. So let me tell you about 2022 in the heart of Moscow. My departure from Russia was anything but easy, like an immigration. And top of that, my regular life was crumbling around me. I had exactly one finished doll left in my storeroom. I was preparing to take her to the last Moscow exhibition I have ever attended. I sat her down at my table, looked at her, and literally said, I need to leave. I need money for plane ticket and a place to stay. Please, find yourself a home. And she sold almost immediately, and I flew off to Spain. I often stay friends with my collectors. Buying art is such an emotional process, and continuing to chat with artists afterwards is a nice bonus. I'm also curious about the fate of my dolls. Plus, people who love dolls tend to be cultured, full of life, and have a good sense of humor. Those 3 dolls a gentleman bought for his beloved had to be restored after spending the entire summer on a yacht in various countries. It sounded absurd when I first heard it, but there is no growth without stepping outside your comfort zone. I recommend everyone give that a try. Imagine a lovingly restored vintage violin, delicate, timeless, and the product of countryless house by a master luthier. That's how I see my dolls. Each one is a symphony of meticulously crafted parts using only the finest materials. My 25 odyssey of research, failures, and triumphs has been poured into them. And yes, they command to a price. But I have learned one thing above all. If a doll decides it wants to live in your home, it will find a way. But here is where the magic happens. What if I told you that your doll, yes, the one you have been dreaming of, could come to you gradually, in a unique puzzle to enjoy as it comes to life, through a yearly subscription? Here is how it works. You pick the character that speaks to you, then subscribe. Each month, I'll ship a new handcrafted component: head, torso, arms, legs, even that perfect wig. For pet elements like hands or feet, you will naturally get them together. If you would like a custom outfit, you can add that into the mix too. Sometimes even boots already fitted to the doll's feet. By the end of the year, you will have the complete set of parts, each infused with the spirit of Barcelona's neighborhoods. And you receive the parts, you will get to feel involved in the shaping of your doll, not just a collector, but as a creator. When the time comes for assembly, we will connect over video call and build the final doll together with elastic and rest suit. You will also receive all the necessary tools, instructions and details for a perfect finish. If distance makes this impossible, I'll send a guide so you can forge your creation right at home. As you assemble your ball-jointed doll, you will uncover its melody rooted in Barcelona's spirit. With each piece, you shape a legend, while its music remains forever on streaming platforms. Once all the pieces are in hand, we will string you together, either via a video chat session or by following the detailed instruction I provide. Don't worry about hook or elastic. I include every last bit of hardware you will need. It's a moment akin to finishing a puzzle you have been working on for months. Except here the final form starts back at you with a real personality. Best of all, you won't just be a collector. You will be a co-creator. Watching your doll come to life over time depends the bond between artist and owner. It's an unforgettable experience, one that goes beyond simply unboxing something you purchased. After all, this particular violin won't just sit on the shelf. It's practically serenade you with its story. By the way, you don't even need to be rich to own it gradually. How can I take what I have learned from exhibiting my dolls and sublimate into the digital realm? How can I reach viewers in a way that lets my dolls wave their little spell over them? I mean, we all know why people wait in the line for hours to see the Mona Lisa. It's like meeting your favorite ballet star in person or having shot an obvious key with Tom Waits. To each their own. I'll do my best to fill my dolls in a way that conveys that sense of presence. However, it pains me to admit that no artistic medium can truly replace physical presence. If you want to get philosophical. But I am being quite practical here when I say, please share this episode with anyone who might find it interesting. Let's fire up the world of mouth radio with songs about dolls